This week on American Land Seller, we are joined by Luke Worrell, Accredited Land Consultant, Accredited Farm Manager, and current Realtors Land Institute President. Luke is the managing broker of Worrell Land Services in Springfield, Illinois, a company started by his father in 1995 as solely a farm management firm. They have since grown to handle management, real estate, and appraisals throughout West Central Illinois. Luke is described by his team as their fearless leader, team quarterback, and all-around great guy. He has amassed numerous awards and accolades over the years, including the coveted RLI Rising Star Award in 2018. This is an annual honor conferred to an aspiring leader within the RLI organization. Luke's fondest childhood memories were built on the family farm, where he spent nearly every weekend helping his grandfather with the pigs and his grandmother in her garden. He earned his Bachelor's of Science degree in Business Administration from Illinois College, and he lives currently in Springfield with his wife Allison and their two sons. I've gotten to know Luke over the last few months, and he is an incredible person, and I know, as always, you will take away something great from this episode. Hello, everyone. My name is Koby Rickardson, and welcome to the American Land Seller Podcast. We are so excited you decided to join us today on our journey to discover new and interesting things about everything land, from sales, investments, ownership, regulations, and so much more. Our mission is to connect you to the top folks in the country where it has to do with land, so we can learn more about everything from agriculture to land development.
Okay, Koby and our special guests, let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the American Land Seller. We are joined today, as in the intro, by Luke Worrell. He's the current Realtors Land Institute president. Super excited to have him on. Such a gracious guy. He's really busy and took the time to come out and help us out today. How you doing today, Luke?
I'm doing good, Koby. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah. Do you get to spend any time in Illinois, or you just traveling the country this year?
You know what? It's a little more traveling than I thought there might be, but it's a blessing and I'm enjoying it. But yeah, it's kind of nice to be home for a hot second.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you're catching up at home, and you have a good team surrounding you, so you can take the time to give back to the Realtors Land Institute. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. We would not be able to do this without my wife Allison and the team we have here at Worrell Land Services for sure. So yeah. They allow me to do some of these really cool opportunities.
Yeah, that's great. I think I'd be a little worried in my organization that I would come back and they would be like, your line item is pretty high dollar. And we have found we don't need that. here's some applications for other jobs, because
yeah, on the back. There you go.
All right. Well, so you guys kind of got your start back in the 90s. Your company in farm management. I don't do a whole lot of farm management. We do like contracts and stuff, but I don't do a lot of farm management, and that's always fascinating to me. So if you don't mind, you want to just talk just a little bit, give me the bird's eye view of what a farm manager does, and then kind of if there's a specialty that you guys have, if you want to just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So yeah, the company started actually in 1995 by my father, Alan. And at the time, here in Illinois, at least, I know it's kind of regional, but every community bank, back when there were community banks, it seems like, every community bank had a trust department, and every trust department had a farm manager. And so that was what my father did when I was growing up. He kind of read the writing on the wall there in the mid-90s, felt like the banking industry was on the rocks. A lot of smaller banks were getting bought out, and he was spot on. That's exactly what happened to the bank he had worked for years and years. But he had left just before that happened to start Worrell Land Services. And at the time, we just did farm management. So the best way that I like to describe farm management is we are an advocate for the land itself, for the farm. We work for the landowner or owners. And so we try to make sure that farm, that acreage is reaching its potential based on what their goals and wishes are. And so we have a lot of people, they're not exactly all economics driven. I mean, obviously some people want every last dollar, but a lot of times, as I'm sure is the case in Nebraska and everywhere else, it's kind of like a family legacy as well. There's like a sentimental component to it.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I describe clientele and farm management. I kind of joke, a vast majority of it is sibling sets and sweet old ladies is kind of,
Hmm.
a lot of our clientele. However, we manage farms for bank trust departments still, local hospitals, investment groups, and things of that nature. So as far as the specialty goes, I'm kind of right here in West Central Illinois, right in Jacksonville, just a little bit west of Springfield where I live. And so this is pretty much corn and beans, corn and beans, corn and beans. Occasionally they'll throw in some wheat just to make you look twice, but it's pretty much corn and beans, and then we have a lot of recreational land as well.
Sure. That was one of the things that I was gonna. That's kind of funny. Your dad's name's Alan. That's my dad's name too. So
There you go.
it's in there.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
got a link together today. But
Yeah.
um, so do you? I know you do farm and ranch management. What about like recreational properties? Are you guys doing any of that?
Yeah, so I would say we don't have like a ton of recreational hunting leases, but there are tracts of land that we manage for families that definitely have some recreational value.
Sure.
And so in that instance, we do have several large hunting leases. We'll look over like timber stand improvements if needed, maybe a selective timber harvest and things of that nature. So they're especially, and then when we go into the real estate component of our business, we certainly do quite a bit of recreational land sales as well.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to us out here. It's mostly farm ground and then some recreational grazing grass, like stuff like that. But so yeah. So um, what kind of you come from similar to my wife and I work together, so you kind of come from a similar background, like a family-owned business. Um, like my brother and I owned a trucking company for several years together and decided we'd rather be brothers than business partners. It's got to be tough to have family involved. How do you manage that? What's your is there like a pillow you scream into, or are you guys just that awesome? You just get along great?
Yeah, somewhere in between, right? Somewhere in between. So, I mean, I listen. I'm very blessed and fortunate. I think one of the reasons it's worked out so well for us is that even I mean, I mentioned my father started this in 1995. So, I mean, I was 13 years old. If you do the math, I'm 40 years old. Um, at the time, I really did not probably acknowledge or admire his bravery like I should have.
Sure.
I certainly do now. At the time, I just was like, "Oh, that's weird. Dad's working out of the spare bedroom of our house now. That's kind of strange." But one of the many reasons I love my dad, he never we never discussed this. It was never pushed on me. Cards face up. I went to school for something completely different, had nothing to do with what I'm doing now, and so. Um, my wife and I met in college. We actually were living in Florida for a bit, but moved back to Central Illinois. The line of work I was in was not an option in Springfield, Illinois, and so I just kind of started helping out on the side. I was shuffling resumes other places, and certainly I grew up around agriculture. Right, I grew up going to the farms on the weekend and hanging out with my dad, but he never pushed it on me, which is great because
Yeah.
I felt no pressure, and so it happened organically. And then I started kind of chipping in 2007, and then fast forward to 2014, my wife had done really well in corporate America, but it kind of felt burnt out by that world. So she came on. Um, and then in 2018, my wife and I purchased the company, and here we are today. Dad's still here, so he's an employee of ours now, which we still get a lot of good jokes out of. So it's kind of come full circle to a certain degree. Um, but yeah, very fortunate, because when I tell people I work with my wife and my father, they kind of look at me, cross-eyed and just assume that we fight and this is some sort of terrible arrangement. So um, I would say the biggest thing that we do to try to alleviate any issues is we try our very best. And I'm not going to lie to you, sometimes it's not possible, but we try our very best to leave work at work and home at
Yeah.
home. And so, I live in a Springfield about 30 minutes away. So I kind of use that drive time almost like to decompress. And so like Jacksonville is work Luke, Springfield is father Luke, and Allison, like husband, father, and all that good stuff. So um, my dad's done a really good job too, as he's kind of taken the foot off the gas. He's really kind of let us chart our own territory. So I'm just super fortunate, honestly, because I'm sure you're the same, Kobe. I mean, you work with a lot of family businesses, and you're part of it, and you probably see your fair share of ones that go south in a hurry. So I consider myself lucky.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's kind of, I mean, essentially that's what your specialty is in farm management is basically it's the people that are wanting the legacy of farm ownership, but are not there anymore. They don't
Right.
have the boots on the ground to take care of it and to watch it and stuff like that. And a lot of times, there's three siblings that don't get along very well. So it's hiring that professional to come in, knowing what you know,
Hmm.
and being that specialized guy. So, yeah, definitely. My experience with the family business is, like I said, we did similar. My brother and my father and I, we did similar with just a different company. And
Yeah.
when it got down to two siblings, it was like there can only be one head on the snake kind of a deal.
Right.
So,
When when I first started working here too, then my mom worked here. Um, and I love my mom to death as well. That one actually was harder because mom had a hard time turning the mom off.
yeah.
And so, like I'm like a young adult trying to make a name for myself. And like the first snow flurry, she's trying to convince me to drive home. If I sneeze, she's like around the corner and forehead, check my temperature and stuff like that. 24. I'm trying to be my own person now, mom. So that's
Yeah.
a little more problematic maybe than working with dad or my wife Allison.
Yeah. No. Well, and I think that's good advice. Like, actually, to everyone out there is like, I tell our agents and our employees that your family does not deserve what people did to you while you're at work, and vice versa. You've got to show up and be a pro every day, and you got to go home and be a family man every day or a family person every day. And so,
Yep.
so that's excellent advice, not just for your situation, but for everybody. So, well, I think that's a great time for us to just take a quick break. And
You bet.
if you got a little bit of time, we got a couple more segments.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. Today's episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch. Remax Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great Remax agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Remax Home Farm and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com. All right, we're back and with Luke Worrell from Springfield, Illinois, the Realtors Land Institute National President. That is quite the accomplishment, considering how small but mighty our organization is, and how involved most people are in it. So tell us about your journey to get to be
Yeah.
the top guy,
It's
Luke.
still pretty weird, to be honest with you. There are days where I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I am the president of this great thing. So, um, yeah, it's RLI, the Realtors Land Institute. It's an amazing organization. I mean, for those that don't know, it's
For sure.
one of the five commercial affiliates under the National Association of Realtors. The big, mighty, powerful NAR. 1.5 million realtors across the country. Realtors Land Institute's about 2,000. A little over 2,000. Will probably be somewhere around 2,300 by the time this year's over. So,
Nice.
yeah, it's a great group. Um, it strives to be the voice of land. Really, is what we used to be known for. We really kind of want to become the place where you know the ropes, know the land, know the people. Right. We want to be able to educate, to put people in touch with one another, and to keep track of a lot of the things that are out there that could impact land and farm ownership. So the thing that I love, I guess I'll backtrack just a little bit to the previous segment. Honestly, in my line of work, there are two organizations that most of the guys in Illinois are involved with. You're either part of the American Society of Farm Managers
Sure.
or the Realtors Land Institute. And the last segment I was talking about how my dad put no pressure on me, and he didn't. But my dad was super involved with the American Society of Farm Managers. I think subconsciously when I was young, and he never put it on me, but I think I interpreted myself as being um, kind of in my dad's shadow because he was such a well respected man and businessman, especially here in West Central Illinois. So I viewed RLI as almost something different. I mean, he's a member of RLI, but he's not really involved too much. So I initially joined it just because I felt it was a way to kind of chart my own path.
Right.
And then I got involved on the state level, the Illinois chapter, and that's when things really kind of took off for me. I loved the education. I loved the networking. I met a ton of people. Obviously, I'm fortunate. You know, my dad is literally like that way across the across the hall. He's a mentor, still is. But I met all these other mentors that really took me under their wing and taught me so much. And so it didn't take long for me to buy into that. Um, and just to like really become the best land broker I can be. And so when I had the opportunity to jump on just like the state level board, I was all for it. Um, and then, before you know it, I was, chapter president. And then before you know it, some of the other people I've gotten to meet at the National Land Conference, which we can talk about that later if you'd like, I was involved on national committees. And, as you get more involved, you get more out of it. Like anything else, right?
Yeah.
You get out what you put in. And I really put in a lot. And I was like, man, this organization is great. It has done so much for me. Um, and then yeah, it happened quick. Kyle Hansen, who was president a while ago, is a good friend of mine. He asked me to chair a committee. The next thing you know, I was treasurer, and like it was always in the back of my mind. I honestly didn't think I'd ever probably do it, if I'm honest with you. But
Yeah.
sure enough, I made one comment about maybe pursuing it, and here I am. So year three of a 4-year stretch on the executive team, but it's been a blessing. The thing I like about RLI is just the caliber of people you have that you work with. Um, I kind of almost view it twofold. My state chapter, me personally, we're a one shop, smaller business. So I'm only licensed in Illinois. Okay. So my state chapter is where those networks is where I really have generated a lot of working relationships, a lot of business. But then you take that to the next level and you go and get involved nationally. And then all of a sudden you're meeting people from coast to coast. Um, and you've probably been to National Land Conference. I'm having a
Oh, yeah.
breakfast roundtable. I'm at like something about selling ranches. I'm never going to sell a ranch, but it's so interesting. It's so interesting, and like you learn about timberland and commercial development, and like if you really love land and you're a sponge, there's no greater place because you are never going to run out of like great people, great stories, and great content. Um, and so that like national has just allowed me to really kind of hone my craft as far as presentation and people skills and meeting people from coast to coast. And it's so true, it sounds cliche, but you get involved and you meet these people and you really kind of slowly develop some sort of nationwide network where
It's true.
I have people call me from Florida and said, "Oh yeah, so and so from Florida told me that you're a good guy." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, and likewise, I've had people around here like, "Hey, I got family who has land in Pensacola, Florida. Who should I talk to?" Well, without RLI, I would just be like, "I don't know, Google it." But
Yeah.
now, it's pretty easy. Like you can confidently direct them certain places.
Yeah.
So it's just been a great organization. We've been growing. It's an old organization. It's had its ups and downs, but we're definitely on a big uptick right now. Our membership has jumped up tremendously in the last few years, and so we're heading to exciting things.
Yeah. It's I tell you what, you go to the land conference and you're right. I mean, the top people in the country are, sitting at the same table eating lunch with you. It's just blows me away. And I've learned a ton and made a ton of contacts and actually friends. There's people I talk to about every week.
Hmm.
Just and so yeah, that's absolutely the crazy how great it's been for my business and for myself personally. So you talked a little bit, or you touched on this, the education aspect. I mean, I'm sure you're biased, but I would venture to say that RLI is the place to go when it comes to education in the land world. And it's not just farm and ranch, like that's what I focus
Sure.
on, but transitional land, which is huge in RLI, development. I mean, all that stuff. Talk just a little bit about the education facet and kind of what we've got going on when it comes to education.
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty broad scope or broad offering of education classes, and I really expect that only to grow. I mean, we've added classes even since I got the designation 12 years ago. We have classes now that I'm retroactively kind of jealous that I didn't have the chance to take. So yeah, it's not just, I think a lot of times the misconception with people that might not be in the land industry is like, oh, well, land is land. It all, to them, it might look the same, but there are so many complexities to land, especially as you kind of get further and further away from what you're used to, that you have to be incredibly well versed. And so in regards to what classes we have, and I'm going to forget some, we kind of start off with Land 101, which is kind of like, sets the table for you. But then, me personally, I took, recreational land and marketing. We have agricultural land and marketing, transitional land, timber land. We have site selection, for those that are more in a development stage. And we really have grown to where we offer, some really neat things. We have a class that's just on mapping software and kind of getting ahead of technology. We have a brand new one, which I'm dying to take, is all about energy and the value of land below the surface and above. I can't wait to take that when I can find the time. Land investment analysis is kind of like one of those for those deep thinkers that really want to, know the terms and crunch the spreadsheets kind of thing. 1031 tax-free exchange is a whole class. And that's one, quite honestly, that I need to take about every 4 years because things change and, it can be pretty complex and understanding the terminology. And so there's, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but regardless of what niche you want, there's classes that can help you in a huge way. And I think a lot of times people want to get into land and they want to learn these things. And it's like, well, where do I go? And other than, nobody should watch, read a 5-minute article or watch a 30-minute YouTube video and consider themselves an expert, right? So, This is the place where we have a broad, deep pool of classes to take. And so, and I honestly, I think, and this isn't a peek behind the curtain, I honestly think that will just continue to grow over time.
Oh yeah. I think that, knowing the team and, with the staff at RLI and the leadership that they have, the permanent leadership, I guess you call it, those guys that is something that you can see the little glimmer in their eye when they talk about the education facet of RLI.
Yeah.
And so I have no doubt that that is just going to continue to grow and be better. But it's
great continuity within the staff. And we actually just were able to hire a brand new staff person. So now we have 2 full-time people dedicated entirely to education. So it's going to be big.
And not just like these people are high-end curriculum development people.
Yeah.
Like we're not just going out and, finding somebody and putting them in there. We're strategically and intentionally growing the division where it comes to education. So yeah, that's great. Great for our organization and great for the industry. So, well, I think let's take a break real quick, Luke, and we'll come back, finish up. But man, I knew I was going to learn a lot, but I'm just in awe at every time I do one of these, but especially some high caliber people on. So yeah, we'll be right back and finish it. Today's episode is brought to you by RE/MAX Home Farm and Ranch. RE/MAX Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great RE/MAX agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by RE/MAX Home, Farm, and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com. Back here with Luke Worrell with Worrell Land Services in it's your actually office it's in Springfield or it's in Jacksonville.
So I live in Jacksonville, yeah.
So well, I had that wrong. You live one place and work in the other, which
yeah, you're close.
Yeah.
You're close.
Right now my office, I have my house above my office, so it's a big commute. It's a whole floor down.
There you go.
Gotten to the point where I don't have a yard or anything anymore. It's just go down to work every day. But let's talk just a little bit about I know Article 11 of the Realtors Code of Ethics or Code of whatever it is, the Realtors Code is always that's really important to the commercial and the land guys. Just because of the fact that, I mean, I don't know if this is the updated version, but I know last year at a certain point, the largest portion of E&O claims and the largest portion of real estate lawsuits kind of come out of places that don't have a structure on it, and that seems crazy, but there's so many rights and so many moving parts to land, especially if you're developing or talking about water rights and things like that. Talk just a little bit about using the education factor like we have, in, using that to improve your business, so that you understand what you're doing, right? I mean,
right. Yeah, I mean, it's and same, should be said for every industry, hopefully. But I think sometimes with land, and you mentioned some of those stats, and I mentioned it earlier, is I think sometimes people there's nothing on there. How hard can it be? Well, the American dream, quote unquote, whatever that is, it kind of started with owning property, right? I mean, that's people came to set their stakes and own land, and so it's a complex, dense history, and there's a lot of regulations. There's a lot of ins and outs that people don't know about, and so, we're at the point where if you want to be involved in land, we're all for it. We welcome you, but we want you to know what you're doing, just to put it bluntly, because I think a lot of times, and likewise, listen, I specialize in land, and we've talked about that, but should I be the one to, sell the commercial warehouse, in the downtown Springfield? No, I shouldn't be, because I don't know the ins and outs of it. That's not my niche. That's not my forte. So, we want to attract people that want to be all in on land and to really go through the ins and outs and understand, a lot of the regulations, a lot of the background and history behind it, because it is different. It's vastly different from residential real estate. And I think, when I got in the industry, I just assumed naively that I need my farm real estate license. Well, I mean, and everybody else, I think that's when you're young and naive, you're like, oh, it's all the same license. Well, I can do everything. Well, I mean, yeah, technically, I guess legally, you could, but doesn't mean I should. And so I think we want to educate the land connoisseurs, if you will, the people who are passionate about land. We want to get them up to snuff. We want high caliber people who are dedicated. And so really it just comes down to, again, kind of comes back down to education. We want people to know the ropes. We want them to know the land and what's going on with land, and then join RLI and know the people, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah, the trick with that, I think, is, well, I mean, honestly, the thing that I absolutely love about RLI is if you hang out with these people, they're going to flat out tell you, I don't even sell my own house. I'm going to refer out my own house. I might get a little bit of a referral fee off of it, but I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to selling residential property, and I sure as heck aren't going to do it the best as somebody that specializes in it and does it every day.
Yeah. You'll enjoy this. As a matter of fact, so I have like a list of professional and personal goals every year. And I kid you not, it's down here underneath my desk. And on every year for the last 3 years, I've had one goal, and it says sell zero residential real estate. Like, because I think when you start off, you're like, I'll take anything. I don't want to say no to anything. And like, I'm fortunate enough to be at a point in my career, I was like, nope. And get back to what you said, I sold my own house once back like in 2011, and it was the worst. It was horrible. I'll never do it. I'll never do it again. I'll never do it again.
Well, and that's like our business is like I'm the land guy out of it, and all the rest of them are residential, and my wife is a
Mhm.
residential, and it is tough. I don't like to turn down business, but I have gotten to the point where this year I'm like, yeah, I'm everything's referred out. So, but
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, we work for people, right? So like, if deep down I know I'm not gonna be the best person for a residential listing, kind of on me to like look out for these people who are entrusting me with their home or advice. And so if I'm not the best person for you, like, we'll tell you. And I think that's says a lot about like RLI. I mean, I think everybody's like that, but for sure, you got to know
you know,
what you know.
well, I just like I said, that always cracked me up. Was the first time I heard that somebody was like, I won't even sell my own house. I was like, wow, that's commitment to practicing what you preach. So,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
all right, well, so there's several different committees that focus on different things. Can we just talk just a second about a couple of those committees that maybe are out there, that people don't know about with RLI that are actually advocating? Like I know, like the Government Affairs Committee
Mhm,
and stuff like that. Let's
mhm.
talk just a little bit about the committee structure with RLI, and then how that's benefiting our consumers.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, like every organization, we have several committees. We have a designation committee, education committee, future leaders committee. But I think the one that really is out there and being proactive, and probably, we don't want to do a whole podcast on politics, obviously. I know I wouldn't listen to that one, right? So, but we do have a governmental affairs committee, and I think there's always a lot out there that's at stake with land, and that goes. And I've said it before, that happens regardless of what letter is next to the
Right.
president's name, whether 1031, water rights. Waters of the U.S.
Yeah.
is the big thing right now. There's always things out there that really we advocate for. And because we're involved with the National Association of Realtors, we actually, help push push the ship, or steer the ship, I should say. A lot of times, we're kind of on the forefront of making sure that some of this possible legislation is thought of in the context of landowners' rights. Because I don't envy the politicians. Let me be clear about that. There's so much, and they don't know what they don't know. We talked about education. A lot of times, because this comes down to, they don't understand that some of the things they do affect just the normal, mom and pop shops like you and myself. So the Government Affairs Committee is definitely a big thing for the consumers, which a lot of people probably don't even know.
Yeah. Well, and then I've really learned a lot by being on that one. That's the committee that I'm on with RLI, and like it's not like they're tackling small things, right? They're like, oh, we got three things on our plate. That's property rights, water, waters of the U.S. and,
Yeah,
and 1031 exchange.
yeah,
That's just the three small things that we're working on right now to try and protect.
yeah. That's yeah, yeah. It's crazy. Like, I go to some of those. I'm involved in quite a few of those meetings on a national level, whether it's at the legislative meetings in DC that I was at a couple weeks ago, and it's like the things that are talked about there. It's like, oh my gosh, like, am I really in this meeting right now? This is soup. This is intense and important. And so, yeah, we're RLI, and it's not just RLI. Don't get me wrong, but like, we play a big role in making sure we're aware um, of what's going on out there, and anything we can do to help the landowner.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, the Realtors Land Institute is just an incredible organization, well run. The leadership, the way that they do their leadership is just it's pretty incredible. And so, really thank you for stepping up, and I know it's a lot of work. I've done stuff in the past with other organizations similar, and it's the travel and the time commitment is incredible, and so I appreciate you taking your turn. So
Yeah, no.
let's we're kind of coming to the end, but I kind of wanted to do is you've kind of come a long ways since you've started in the industry. If you were to go back to the beginning, let's say somebody's out there listening is just getting started in the land real estate world. What would you tell a younger Luke? About what should we be focusing on if we're just getting started and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, shameless plug. Admittedly, I probably would have gotten started with RLI even sooner. I waited a little bit, just trying to kind of a feeling out process. I admittedly probably didn't have a lot of self confidence, jumping in. I think I would have found that a lot sooner if I would have put myself out there and got involved. Maybe not even in RLI, but just in other social functions and engagements. I think if you're going to be a realtor, it's about people. Whether you're selling a duplex, a car wash, or a 200-acre farm, it's about people. So the more things you can do to hone your craft as a communicator, I think is huge. You grow the most when you're put in uncomfortable situations. Really, is what it comes. And so I would encourage anyone out there to don't doubt yourself. 10 toes in the water. Go forward and don't look back. I also would think, and I've been fortunate. I have a great respect for my dad, and I feel like he's always done things the right way as well. And so, the real estate industry always has a way to where if you don't keep a moral compass about you, you can go off the rails pretty quickly. And so I'm very grateful for the background I have and the mentors I've had. So, I always tell young folks, like, don't, we're all chasers, right? We're all bird dogs. We're the thrill of the chase is great, but don't do anything that's gonna not let you sleep at night. So, nothing sleeps as good as a clean conscience is something I've heard before. And so, self confidence, do the right thing, make sure you sleep well at night, and you'll be fine. Might take a while, but you'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Well, I think that's an elegant way of my saying is always, if you have to live off of this one commission, you're in the wrong industry, right? So
Mhm.
we're in it for the long game. I want people to be taken care of. I want clients and customers. I want those people to look at the end and say, hey, you know what, their mission of everybody wins is actually what happened. We came to a mutual win for everybody, which is tough. But yeah, absolutely. That is the best advice I've heard in a long time. Is keeping your conscience clean and doing it the right way. So, anything you want to add? How can folks get a hold of you, Luke, if they're they just inherited some farm ground right around central Illinois and
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Worrell landservices.com. You'll find our whole team and what we do here. I'm always thrilled to talk to people. And 217 Happy to have a conversation. And certainly, if we have any RLI people out there and we're ever at the same engagement, by all means, come up and introduce yourself. So I would love to say that I know all 2,300 people, but that would be a lie. So, if we're in the same place, yes, I'm president. And some people are like, oh my gosh, you're president, but I'm just like everyone else. I'm in this land game, trying to do it the right way. So I'd love to chat
yeah,
with you.
I think that's funny you say that, but I've kind of gotten to know some of the leaders over the years, and they're so approachable. I mean, it's just like the apples. It's like you said. It's like half of them don't even realize how they got where they were.
It's like I woke up one day and here I am.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, again, I appreciate you taking the time. I do think that it's important, like, I don't know whether you pay your people really well, Luke, or what, but, your bio, it starts out that you're the fearless leader, team quarterback, and all around great guy. So if your team is saying that about you, then that's a good sign.
Yeah. Well, fun fact, my wife wrote that, so that's good. She's in charge of marketing. There you go, right? It's a family business. But I would hope that the others would think the same thing.
No, that's good. Well, at least she does. That's the most important part. So hopefully she doesn't have to rewrite it every day. So.
Yeah, one person on it. So there we go.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much for being on here today, and we will see you all down the road. We're back. You have been listening to the American Land Seller Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this week for our program, and we promise to continue to try and find new, exciting, and informative things to discuss every single time. If you would be so kind, please like, subscribe, or follow whatever works on the app you're listening or watching on. We would love for you to keep track of what we're up to. Thanks again, and until next time, God bless you. Have a great week. Today's episode is brought to you by RE/MAX Home Farm and Ranch. RE/MAX Home Farm and Ranch is the premier marketing and selling real estate company in Nebraska and South Dakota. You can find all the great RE/MAX agents and their listings at homefarmranch.com. That's homefarmranch.com. You can look up and see what they're up to and follow along on all the things that they have going on. Once again, this episode is brought to you by RE/MAX Home Farm and Ranch, and you can find their listings and their agents at homefarmranch.com. Once again, homefarmranch.com.